Hey there. If you've been following along what I did in January, you'll know that I went through four Bible diets in the course of the whole of the month of January, a week each, except for one that was 10 days. So I went through fasting from the Bible. I went through the real Daniel diet, where I only ate pulse soup for 10 days. I went into the Ezekiel diet, ate Ezekiel bread only for 1 week, and then I finished with the Exodus diet, where I had bread in the morning and meat in the evening, just like the Israelites did for 40 years, but I just did it for 7 days. And so now we're in the middle of February, and I've gone through all of the pros and cons of those four diets, and I thought, okay, what do I do next? And it finally struck me the other day that I needed just to go back to scriptures, go back to God's food chart and what God said is good food to eat, and I hit upon what I should do. And so, of course, man had been on a plant-based diet from the beginning. And in fact, if you'd been on this diet, you would have been on it for 2,300 years. And then you're suddenly told you can begin eating meat. That's going to be quite a significant change. Now, initially, it might even be repulsive to consider eating meat when you've never eaten it before. But over time, the joys of eating meat, that is clean meat, would likely have become a bit of an event, especially at the beginning. And so, to celebrate the introduction of meat into man's diet, what I'm going to embark on, I'm going to call the Noah diet. So those that are strictly on a carnivore diet, they're only going to partially align with what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to abandon the plant-based part of the diet that God created for us. I'm just going to be incorporating the meat element and giving it a higher priority for this phase of this. I'm not sure how long yet I'll do it. But I am curious as to what the results will be on my physical health. And as usual, I'm going to track this daily and share the results with you. So I looked back at some scriptural support for this, and I began just by looking in Genesis and what happened with Noah. Was Noah truly eating a plant-based diet to begin with? So I saw in Genesis chapter 6, verse 21, where God said to Noah, "And you shall take for yourself all food that is eaten, and you shall gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them," referring to the animals. So for Noah and his family and the animals, they were gathering this plant-based diet, bringing it onto the ark with them. And then I was thinking, well, how did Noah know which animals to eat? Because in Genesis 9, verse 3, it says, "Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. I have given you all things, even as the green herbs," saying when I gave you the green herbs, even though the animals were eating more of the green herbs of the field, man was eating mostly probably back then fruit and nuts initially, then moved on to the grains because he was making bread. As part of his punishment, he had to work the ground and sweat to earn his bread. So I thought, is it really all animals that God told Noah to eat? However, there is something earlier, Genesis chapter 7, verses 2 to 3. God said to Noah, "You shall take with you 7 of every clean animal, a male and his female, 2 of each of animals that are unclean, male and his female. Also 7 each of the birds of the air, male and female, to keep the species alive on the face of all the earth." And so God did tell Noah what was clean and unclean. Noah did have an understanding of the clean animals and the unclean animals. And of course, much later in Scripture, predominantly in Numbers, Deuteronomy and Leviticus, where he was very specific about what is clean and what is unclean. So as an example, pork is unclean. We should not eat pork. They are loaded with parasites. They are loaded with disease. They are still unclean to this day. And there's nothing scriptural that shows we began eating these animals. So I'm sticking to the clean animals. And so, and another thing too that happened with Noah in Genesis chapter 9 as well, verse 20 and 21, and I am incorporating this. Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. Then he drank of the wine and was drunk and became uncovered in his tent. So there's a couple of things here. First of all, he began to be a farmer. I don't know what Noah did for 500 years before he became an ark builder, but he wasn't a farmer because it said he began to be a farmer. So I don't know what he did for 500 years. If you know, let me know what you think Noah did for 500 years. But he was not a farmer, and he did not grow grapes and make wine because he drank this wine and he got drunk. Now, there could be some reasons behind that, and I might mention that a little bit here, but and became covered in his tent. And of course, there was shame involved there. So the very first caution comes. The first time God talks about drinking wine, he also talks about the shame involved with becoming drunk. And so wine, good; drunk, not good. Okay, and all throughout Scripture, every 5 times, in fact, that drinking alcohol is mentioned, there's one verse that cautions against over consuming it. And so, and actually to look further ahead, so okay, let's look at the New Testament, for example. What does that say about eating meat, a meat diet compared to just a plant diet? There is a verse in Romans 14, verses 1 to 3. Now, this is a metaphor about the strength of somebody's faith, but the metaphor is used in terms of food because we would understand that. So the verses read, "Receive one who is weak in the faith, but not to dispute over doubtful things. For one believes he may eat all things, but he who is weak eats only vegetables. Let not him who eats despise him who does not eat, and let not him who does not eat judge him who eats, for God has received him." And there's other scriptures saying it's okay if you ate, but it doesn't mean everything is good for you. But it also suggests that we need this strength from the meat to not be weak. And so let's look at why God may have suddenly said after 2,300 years that now we should start eating meat. Why would he do that after so long if just a plant-based diet was okay? So what changed? That's the thing we need to look at. So let's have a look at that. The pre-flood human body experienced increased air pressure and increased oxygen. There's a suggestion that there was double the air pressure and 50% more oxygen in the air. This enabled our bodies to thrive, to heal, to grow quickly, but it also provided more nutrients in the plants we enjoyed as our sole fuel source. After the flood, the nutrients in our food decreased. Our ability to heal and grow also decreased. So a supplementation to our standard diet was needed to support our health now. It had to be something more. And a simple proof of this is the human lifespan and how it reduced after the flood. Pre-flood times, the average age of man was a little bit over 900 years. I think to be exact, it's 912 years. Post-flood, however, there was a rapid decline to the point that the average lifespan today is a little over 80 years in some countries. I think on average in the whole world, it's between 70 and 80 years. That's a massive shift that all came from a single event standing out as the only reason behind it. So as we begin to understand the change in our environment, man has been able to mimic pre-flood conditions with hyperbaric oxygen chamber usage. What do we use it for? Predominantly, it's used in injury treatment because it accelerates the healing process in our body dramatically. Again, this is further proof of the pre- and post-flood change and supports our need for increased nutritional support. So God, in his infinite wisdom, provided for our needs. So this new protein that we added into our diet, what does it do and when does it do it? So, of course, protein, it heals, repairs, grows, it protects us It supports our immune system. But when does this healing happen? It happens during deep sleep. Okay? During the day, our body is busy burning calories. It's busy managing daily bodily functions. A lot of that is just digesting food. We eat a lot more than we should, likely. So our body reverts back to the healing process when we are in a fasted state. And being in a fasted state occurs in two possible ways. The first one is obvious. When we are fasting, not eating, not digesting, right? We are in a fasted state. The other time we're in this state is when we are sleeping. So both in fasting and in sleep, that's when the body releases growth hormone, which is essential to muscle development. And if we look at Exodus 16, verse 11 to 12, because this is important about when we consume protein. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, I have heard the complaints of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God. We know that protein is not the body's preferred energy source. And we know that for 2,300 years, we didn't need much protein at all. We get some of what was a plant-based diet, but the high levels of oxygen and air pressure took care of our healing and growth needs pre-flood. So we didn't need the extra protein that we do need today. We get about 4 calories of energy per gram for carbohydrates. This is the body's preferred energy source. Fat, we get 9 calories per gram, so a little bit more than double. Now, any excess of carbohydrates and fat, they are stored as fat in our bodies. So we don't need excess of that in our bodies, especially in the evening and when we are going to sleep. Protein, also 4 calories per gram, so about the same as carbohydrates. This gets converted into amino acids for healing, for repairing, and for growing, which is what we need when we are fasted and sleeping in deep sleep. The body does not have much ability to store excess protein as fat in the body. It wants to use it up. And it's thermogenic, which is why if we have too much meat in our system when we try to sleep, we sweat, right? We get what they call the meat sweats. It's thermogenic. It tries to burn out of our system rather than try to store that as fat. And so for the Noah diet, what am I going to do? I may have some fats and some carbohydrates early in the day, just like they did in Exodus. God knows best about when we need the carbs and when we need the protein. Okay, so earlier in the day, as I feel I need the energy, I will have carbohydrates and fats. In the evening, I will get the protein. That's where I will get the meat, because I know my body needs that to repair and grow muscle in deep sleep during the night. And of course, knowing that for the very first time, Noah and his family were eating meat. They had permission to eat this clean meat. It would have been quite the experience. It would have been an event almost. So I'm going to revere that time. I'm going to thank God for that protein, for that meat, right? And spiritually give it as offering to him. Occasionally, I will also have wine, because wine was introduced by God to Noah and his family, to man, at the same time. The vegetable side of things, they are there, but they are not a requirement. They do not give me the healing that I need. As long as I'm getting the energy I need, it may come from bread, it may come from some form of vegetables, but the focus here will be a clean meat focused diet. I'm calling this the Noah diet. I'm going to follow it in a way to experience what Noah and his family may have been going through back at the first time that God said, hey, Noah, you can now eat meat. And of course, God knew they needed that extra protein, because the source of their healing and their growth was now gone, and they needed this new supplement for that. God, in his wisdom, gave what we needed. So I'll start reporting on this day 1, day 2 of the Noah diet. I'll probably begin in a day or two, and I'll record all of my data, my measurements, all of my stats on my fat and my weight and my muscle mass, and I will share the results with you every day. And together we will see what comes of this Noah diet. Bye for now.